everyone, and welcome to the World Class Stand podcast. Our special guest today is an England and Southampton legend. He appeared 443 times for the Saints, scoring 161 goals, including the last ever goal scored at the Dell. He's regarded as one of the best creative attacking midfielders of his generation and represented his country on 8 occasions. Our special guest today is Matt Le Tissier. Welcome to the show, Matt.
Thank you very much.
If you'd like to check out some CBD products, I've tried them myself. You can go to supremecbd.uk, that's SUPREME, CBD.uk, and use promo code TIS40, TISS40, and you'll get 40% off your order. Matt, thanks for coming to the show.
My pleasure.
What is your definition of a world-class player?
I think my definition of a world-class player is somebody who most people would look at and think, wow, when you're having a conversation about the best players that have played the game, anyone that kind of gets mentioned in that conversation, that kind of tells me that's world class if a lot of people put your name into that conversation.
Do you think trophies matter with that definition? Do you think
it depends what it doesn't. My definition of world class, when you're talking about a world class player, I'm looking at the player himself and what he can do, not what he's done as part of a team, because I think that's a very different conversation to have. Obviously, a player can have a big effect on whether a team wins trophies or not, but he can't do it on his own. So if you're talking about somebody's world-class ability as a footballer, then I personally just look at the footballer and see what he can do on a football pitch.
Do you think that needs to be over a long-term, consistent, years and years, season after season?
Yeah, I really do. I think when you're talking about conversations with world-class players and the best that have played the game, then normally I would say you'd probably have had to have done that over 7, 8, 9 years at least. I think something, definitely a length of time that you can say to people, well, I wasn't just a flash in the pan. I didn't have a couple of good seasons here, a couple of good seasons there. I did it over a long period of time.
I think in general conversation with football fans, I think it's the highest accolade you can actually give a player is the world-class level. So that's what we're trying to do on this show. And it's trying to separate the best of the best, really. And it's quite tough.
Well, it's tough because everybody's got a different opinion on things, So it's very difficult to get a consensus on a player because everybody looks at football and enjoys different things about the way somebody plays football. And there are different levels. You have good players, you have very good players, you have excellent players, and you have world-class players. And there's whatever player you mention, not every football fan will put them all in the same category.
No,
and that's why football's so much loved, I think, because everybody's got an opinion on it, and not everybody will ever agree all the time.
Yeah, definitely. I think for world class, for me, one of the things that I think about with world class players, could you pick up that player and would he slot in his own position amongst the top sides in Europe? Do you think that's a fair assessment of a world class player?
I think that's one of the things that a world class player would possess, would be that ability to just slot into a team anywhere and doesn't need kind of time to settle. I understand if somebody's moved country and they don't speak the language, and it's a bit of a problem for people. But I think if you're going from country to country where you do speak the language, then I don't really think you need that much time to settle. If I'm honest, if you're a world class player,
world class,
Just wanted to. You got any names to throw out that meet that criteria for you?
World class?
Yeah.
Oh,
when you played now.
Steve, it's not you. Sorry.
Definitely.
Fishing for compliments here.
I would say probably during my time, I think there would be people like Zinedine Zidane. I think it was one that springs to mind for me. Superb footballer over, again, a long period of time. Thierry Henry is another one that I played against that I would put in that bracket. I played against Roberto Baggio.
Oh, right, okay,
I would put him up there.
And
there's plenty more that will spring to mind as we carry on talking through the next little while here. But those ones are ones that kind of come in my era. I mean, I would have had Gaza in there. And that's a real bone of contention, I think, for a lot of people, because we're talking about the criteria of doing it over massive long periods of time.
Yeah.
I think because of Gaz's injuries, I think had he not got that injury in the cup final, I think he would have kind of been in that conversation. But I think that really took a little bit away from him as a player. I think the Gazza after that knee injury was never quite the same as the one, or never quite as good as the one that was before it, in my opinion.
Okay, well, on that note, we're interested to know your all-time played with and against 11, starting with goalkeeper through defence, midfield, and up front. So over to you.
Okay, so the 11 that I played with, I'm kind of picking it from I'm going to pick it from the team that I played with at Southampton, because I didn't play very much for England, and I could name players that I did play alongside there, but I think it's fairer if I choose the ones from Southampton, if you're honest. So. So here goes. There's a lot of good goalkeepers.
You might have to give them the stamp or not as well. Yeah. So that's a bit of pressure, I think.
I played under a lot of really good goalkeepers at Southampton. I think Tim Flowers, would probably be the pick of the bunch.
Okay.
Yeah, he was a good shot stopper.
Yeah, he
come
was
out
very,
big.
very good shot stopper, and a great lad to have in the change room as well. That kind of helps, I think, as well in a team situation to be a good team member who keeps everyone joking along, makes everyone not necessarily feel good about themselves, because he was very good at taking the piss out of people. But in a way that wasn't offensive. It was just great, great fun.
Goalkeepers, they've got a reputation of being a bit over the top and crazy, haven't they? Yeah,
they have indeed,
you got to be crazy to go between the sticks.
Tim had a little bit of that about him. He wasn't one of the craziest ones I played with, but we had people like John Burridge, who I played alongside, who was properly mental. Then I was quite lucky, really, because we had Bruce Grobbelaar, played with Dave Besant, Paul Jones, international goalies.
Yeah.
So we had quite a few, but I would say Tim had a really, really good spell at Southampton, where I think he won Player of the Season a couple of times. So
great
stuff. Unusual for a goalie. So then my back four, my right back, I always get questioned by Saints fans when I choose this, because I always choose. Most people are going to say I'm going to say Jason Dodd, because Dodd was obviously right back for a long time and kind of pretty much the same amount of time as my career. But we had a guy called Jeff Kenner who I thought was a little bit better than Dodsey as a fullback. I think he gave us a little bit more going forward than what Dodsey did. And obviously he was the one that got the big move to Blackburn and went on to win the Premier League. And so Jeff Kenner gets in as my right back. Left back again is a surprise to a lot of people, because he only played for Southampton for one season. And he was probably coming towards the back end of his career at the time. And he had a lot of injuries, but I played with a guy called Derek Statham, who was probably the second best left back in England for many, many years. And the only reason he didn't get a whole host of England caps was because Kenny Sansom was around at that time and was an incredible left back. But Derek Statham for me was a very accomplished left back, really comfortable on the ball. I thought he was a bit ahead of his time in the way he played. He was, one of the fullbacks that was very, very comfortable on the ball, rarely gave the ball away, and was quite happy to go and join in attacks. And Derek Statham gets in.
What era did he play? I'll be honest.
So that was the 87-88 season.
Why?
At Southampton. Go way back.
We were early 90s probably.
Yeah.
When Premier League first formed, actually.
Premier League was 92,
92,
I played with Derek in the 87-88 season.
Yeah.
These wing backs, or left back, right back, what were they like for pace compared to, say, modern day wing backs?
Nothing like today. I mean, you look at people like Kyle Walker now and you just go, Jesus, how would you get past that?
Yeah.
But yeah, they were obviously, we weren't as athletic back in the 80s and 90s as the boys are today. There's definitely been a change in that respect, I think.
Well, they focused a lot more on defending, didn't they?
They were, and intimidating the wingers. They were the fullbacks in those days. A lot of them were just intent on,
taking out the winger,
having a free go at the winger early, because you could do that and not get a yellow card straight away back in those days.
Usually a nosebleed if they crossed the halfway line. For most of the fullbacks back then, wasn't so much as I suppose maybe like when Gary Neville first started playing. that overlap with David Beckham. That was kind of the start of the modernisation of the fullbacks.
Yeah, I think so. So centre backs, again, I played with a lot of decent centre backs at Southampton, and I think I would choose. I mean, I've probably got 6 or 7 I could choose from, and there's not a whole lot between all of them, but I think for the short spell that I played with Dean Richards at Southampton, he was unbelievably good. God bless his soul.
Yeah.
Because he was taken from us far too early. But he had a wonderful spell at Saints. Got a big move to Spurs on the back of it. So he was excellent. Then we had a whole host of centre backs right the way back from Mark Wright, who was in the team when I first started. Ken Moncow had a great spell at Saints for quite a number of years. And the second one I'm going to pick actually is right at the back end of my career. Was a Swedish centre back called Michael Svensson.
Okay.
Who had the nickname Killer, and he very much lived up to that nickname even in training. He was one of those players who didn't differentiate between a match day and a training day. Okay. He didn't care if you were your teammate. If it was a practice match on the training ground, he would play just the same as he would. So. And he was a fierce. I mean, he made a good partnership with Klaus Lundekvam for quite a number of years there. Klaus was also another one that would be unlucky not to get in. Richard Hall was another one who was a really good centre back. Injury cut short his career a little bit, but he was incredibly promising. So yeah, there was quite. I played with Russell Osman, another England international, who was probably the best 2-footed player I ever played with. Which as a centre back, it was quite surprising.
Yeah.
But he was very cultured, but also a very good defender as well. So, yeah, I have plenty to choose from centre-back-wise. In the midfield, I'm going to play 4-4-2. Okay. I'm going old school.
I called that earlier.
Old school.
I said old school 4-4-2.
So, in the centre of midfield, I have to put in Jimmy Case. Because Jimmy at Southampton had a big influence on me in my early years. He was coming to the end of his career, but he was a proper old school, old pro. He would look after the young kids. I'd be playing out on the right wing. If the left back was trying to kick the crap out of me, Jimmy would just wander over and let him have one on my behalf, and just go, put him in his place a little bit. But he could also play. He was quite happy to put his foot in, but he was also a really good footballer. I think probably a little bit underrated as an actual footballer because of his hard man image. So Jimmy would get in as one of my centre midfielders. The second one will, if you're not a Southampton supporter, you'd probably go who? Because he only played about just over 20 games for Saints, I think, in the one season he was with us in the mid-90s. And that was a guy called Ronnie Eklund, Danish midfielder. And we only had him on loan. We got him on loan from Barcelona because Alan Ball, who was manager at the time, was mates with Johan Cruyff, who was manager at Barcelona. We just happened to be in the same pre-season camp over in Holland, stayed at the same hotel as Barcelona. And Bally and Cruyff were chatting one evening. And Bally just happened to say, have you got anyone spare? Can you lend us anyone? And Johan Cruyff just had a think about it, and he said, I'll leave you a present in the morning.
Nice. And
because Barcelona were leaving the next day, and they left behind Ronnie Eklund. And he came and trained with us, and right from the first training session, I was like, whoa, this boy can play. And we were right on each other's wavelength right from the start. It was the most fun I had on a football pitch was when I played alongside Ronnie, so that was pretty good.
Was he quite an attacking player then?
Yeah, he was an attacking midfielder. Just really, really comfortable on the ball. Saw pitches early, saw passes early. He was a good finisher. He just had a back injury which cut short his career at Southampton, really, and that was a bit of a shame because that 94-95 season was the most fun I had. I ended up scoring 30 goals that season.
I was going to say, I thought that was one of your best scoring seasons.
Yeah, so they would be my two in midfield. Out on the left wing, I'd have to put Rodney Wallace. Rodney was, again, up there with Ronnie in terms of player that I enjoyed playing alongside. His pace was electric. He was a really good finisher, and he got me out of a lot of trouble, because I knew if I just put the ball in an area, I knew that with his pace he was going to get there before any defenders. So even when I was in trouble, I didn't even need to look. I would just pop the ball in the area, and he would just sprint onto it, and everyone would go, "Oh, what a great pass that was!" Well, not really. I just put it in there so he can just run. So he used to make me look better than I probably actually was. So Rodney would definitely get in the team. Right side of me, I'm not going to pick myself, obviously.
We weren't sure about that either.
I would have picked you.
Gotta stick yourself in.
Definitely.
I think as a right-sided midfielder or a right winger, Rodney's brother was pretty good as well, Danny, who obviously got the move to Man United. So played alongside Dan for 2 or 3 years before he got his move. In fact, it was actually Danny's move that paved the way for me to get a regular place in the team.
Right.
So as a kid, I was, in and out of the team, on the bench a lot. And it was only when Danny moved to Man United that all of a sudden I was like, okay, that's my spot now. And the manager kind of trusted me, and so I got a lot to thank Danny for as well. So, but again, he was pace electric. Fans loved him at the Dell, and he could do things that other players couldn't. Danny would be there on the right, and then I've got to pick 2 up front. Now,
And the manager as well.
Oh, and a manager. Wow,
Yeah.
The manager's easy. So, obviously, the Premier League's all-time top goal scorer
Okay.
would have to get in my team.
Yep.
So Alan Shearer would have to be in there. I mean, he probably got better after he left Saints, to be honest. He wasn't prolific for us,
Right.
but you could tell, he was going to be a player, and he was getting better and stronger every season. And when he left to go to Blackburn, it was just the making of him. Alan would be one of my.
That would have been devastating if he stayed at Southampton. You too, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we had that season when him and Rodney were all playing up front, and we had a couple of seasons, but the 89-90 season especially was one of the funnest seasons that I had. I think the football that we were playing, a lot of weeks we were playing 4-2-4.
Right.
Paul Rideout was up front as well with Alan. And I remember Liverpool coming to the Dell in October 89, and they hadn't been beaten all season. And they came to our place and we smashed them 4-1, and it could have been 7 or 8-1 easy, and nobody could have complained. We were in the woodwork, all sorts. So that was a fun team to play in. I think the second player up front with Alan, I think I have to go for one of the guys back end of my career again, but he was a little genius on a football pitch. Again, injuries probably meant we didn't see the best of him over a long period of time, but Marian Pahars,
All right.
the little Latvian Michael Owen,
Yeah.
he was an unbelievable talent. He was one of the very few players that would do things in training that would have me going, how do you do that? And so I was really impressed with what he could do. And he had a big hand in keeping us up in I think it was the 98-99 season, when he came in and he could barely speak a word of English, and he came in and scored a few goals at the end of the season and helped keep us up. And the fans absolutely adored him, and rightly so. He was when he was fit, he was really, really good for us. Yeah. So, and the manager is pretty easy. I played on the 9, but there was only one really that stood head and shoulders above the others, and that was the late great Alan Ball.
Yeah.
Yeah,
He
never
really built a team around you
Yeah.
during this spell there.
He did. He got the best out of me in a way kind of probably none of the other managers really did. He had a belief in me that perhaps none of the other managers really did. I always felt like most of the managers would always kind of focus on the stuff that I couldn't do.
Right.
Whereas Borley would just focus on the stuff that I was good at and let me go out and do it. And that 18 months he was my manager was the best 18 months of my career. So I got 45 goals in 64 games in that period when Alan Ball was my manager. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
the stats tell it all, really.
Indeed.
Did you have your best goal scoring season was 30, and then the following season did you have 19 goals? The season after 95, 96.
So no, I don't think it was that many in 95, 96. My two best seasons were 93, 94 and 94, 95. So I had 25 in 93, 94. They were all league goals, actually. So that was my best league goal scoring. And then the following season I got 30, but I think only 19 or 20 of them were in the league, and I scored a load of goals in the cups that season.
There were a couple of good ones in there. Some absolutely outrageous strikes. What's your favourite of all the goals? I saw your top 10 last night, actually. Show my daughter. And she couldn't believe the type of goals that were going in.
Yeah. I mean, my best goal, I would always class as the goal I scored at Blackburn against my old mate Tim Flowers. So that was pretty special to score from like 35 yards past him and him get nowhere near it.
And is it true about the towel as well?
I don't remember that conversation.
Okay.
I don't know where that came from. I mean, I might have had that conversation. It's probably something that I might have said to him, just taking the mick. I don't explicitly recall having that conversation with him. I mean, I did have a conversation with him where I told him, where he actually said to me that I was never going to score past him when he left Saints. So that was nice to put one over on him there.
It's a great goal that was, yeah.
Yeah, so that was what I consider my best goal. You asked what my favourite goal was, and that's something slightly different. My favourite goal, it was the last ever goal at the Dell.
Yeah.
Right.
So
Brilliant.
that was a pretty special way to sign off the old stadium. 2-2 against Arsenal, came on at sub, hadn't scored a Premier League goal all season, and came on and whipped a left-footed half volley in the top corner and scored the winning goal in the 88th minute, I think it was. So
Yeah.
that was a pretty special way to send off the old stadium.
So you mentioned that not long after that you had a corner where you could have possibly whipped it in, and you was thinking, hang on a minute, someone else might get the last goal.
Exactly, yeah. So I played a short corner of the Wayne Bridge. Before he had a chance to cross it, the ref blew the whistle. Happy days.
Don't want anyone stealing your goal.
Exactly. Historical moment.
Take it, yeah.
Wayne Bridge scoring the last ever goal at the Dell doesn't have the same ring, does it?
It was my destiny.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's my Saints lot.
Good
Yeah.
side.
Out of those, is there any that you'd give the world class stamp to?
No.
No? Not even Alan Shearer, maybe?
He'd be the closest.
Yeah.
He'd be the closest.
What didn't he do for you then to not quite get it?
It's a good question, actually.
This is what we've been finding on this podcast. It's so tough to give and so tough to define what world class is.
Yeah, because I think Alan was great at what he did. I think there were some deficiencies in his game. So his left foot wasn't particularly good. I would say as the years went on, I think he became more of an out-and-out goal scorer and didn't really want to get involved too much in the rest of the build-up play and stuff. So I just think he was just that little level below what I would describe as world-class.
Okay.
Interesting, that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to ask, because like you said, maybe he hasn't got the blistering pace or the amazing technique. He just seems to be a very good all-rounder.
Yeah,
and it all came together for this prolific...
old-fashioned, proper centre-forward, but with a little bit... So, see, when Alan was playing for us, when me and Rodney were playing on the wings, me and Rodney both outscored Alan in the 89-90 and 90-91 seasons. Alan didn't get anywhere near the amount of goals me and Rodney got. Because the way that we played, me and Rodney were wingers that liked to come inside and score the goals. We weren't kind of take your man on and get across him for someone else. So what it meant was that Alan used to do all these runs in the channels, and he would end up running the channels, and he would end up crossing to me and Rodney sometimes. So I think when he went to Blackburn, Kennydale, he actually said to him, look, he said, I've got two great wingers. I think he had Stuart Ripley on one wing, I think, and Jason Wilcox on the other.
Yeah.
He said, I don't want you moving outside the 18-yard box. He said, I don't need you to do that. So Alan was like, woohoo, this is great. Goals. And that's why he did what he did, The manager believed in him, and played to his strengths.
Yeah.
And that's what Borley did with me, and that's how you get the best out of players.
Yeah.
Speaking of world class players, is there any specific that stand out maybe from the Premier League in your generation that you'd say is world class?
Well, Henri was really the standout one
Yeah.
for me. That was kind of late 90s when he kind of came to Arsenal. I think around 98, 99, somewhere around there.
I think he scored his first goal.
Scored his first goal at the Dell.
Cracking
He did.
goal, actually.
He did.
As well.
We set up actually a lot of players on runs. You know, if you were having a barren spell, you wanted to play against Southampton because we were
Go
quite
to
happy to go on have a goal against us. Dennis Bergkamp went 12 games when he joined Arsenal without scoring.
Okay.
Guess who he scored his first goals against?
Probably one of those curling.
We were good like
top
that.
corners.
Yeah, it was actually. Yeah, I stood right behind it at Highbury. He was a player.
Would he get a stamp for you, Dennis
I
Bergkamp?
think he probably would.
World class. Yeah, I think a few of us would give him the world class stamp.
I think he would. Yeah, I think. Again, a player like that, I would pay money to go and watch.
Mm-hmm.
I would happily, I don't pay money to watch a lot of football, but
Yeah.
Dennis Bergkamp in his pomp, I would be paying money to go and watch that.
Is it more towards, because you've said previously that you played more for the entertainment side of things and put a show on for the fans? Is that the type of players you'd lean towards world class? Those true entertainers
Yeah.
that can,
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I didn't know a lot about defending, so I would find it difficult to judge what a world-class defender was. Obviously, I played against players that I found difficult to play against. But in terms of like the technical details, and I didn't really kind of go into any great in-depth analysis about defenders that I was playing against, or what their strengths and weaknesses were. I just backed myself with my ability to do what came naturally on a football pitch and see where we went from there, really. So yeah, I love the entertainers, and my team will be packed with them.
Do you think that that sort of playing style, say a marauding centre midfielder, attacking midfielder, has been taken out of today's game? You think it's overcoached with banks of four, keeping tight, rather than, the game used to be more open in the middle of the park, and a manager would play to the strengths of that, whilst today's game seems to be more about the whole unit, rather around the players.
It's definitely more focused on team units and formations, as opposed to individual players and what they can do. So I think a lot of managers now have got a set formation in their mind that they want to have, and they'll put the players in their place that they think is best for that formation. I think a lot of the times back in our days, the manager would look and go, "Who's my best players?
Yeah.
What's the best formation?"
Yeah.
And that's just a slightly different way of looking at things.
Yeah, build a team around the best players
rather than have a set formation that you want to play, and then go, right, where they're going to fit in, where's best to fit everyone into that team. And there's merits to both sides of that argument. And I think managers nowadays kind of want to make it. I feel like managers these days want to make it about themselves as opposed to about the players.
Yeah.
These days, it feels like there's so much focus on the tactical side of the game.
Yeah.
Managers always want to be seen as, I made a tactical change there. That's the reason why we won the game. Not the fact that bloke just stuck one in the top corner for 25 yards.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I think one of the first managers who kind of really, in recent times, I suppose, is Jose Mourinho, where he come over with the whole special one. And whenever Chelsea won a game, he's like, I won the game, or, and then in the post-match press conferences, you'll have him talking about, it's more about, the referee's decisions and deflecting. And maybe there's an element of protecting the players there, but definitely felt like he was making it more about him than more about the players, at least later on in his career as well.
Yeah, I think that's a fair comment. I think he definitely changed the perception of managers in this country.
Yeah.
I don't think we'd ever really seen anybody who was kind of that upfront about his ability and how highly he rated himself. But I loved it.
It was entertaining. I wouldn't say it wasn't entertaining.
It was a
to watch,
breath of fresh air until he then went to Man United, and then he turned into this grumpy old git. He just used to moan about everything, and it was a shame. I loved the Mourinho that first came across. I thought was brilliant, and then I don't know. I think he just got a bit fed up with everything, and just lost his enthusiasm, and just turned into a grumpy old man.
He managed to get Man United second as well.
Yeah.
that stint, which is quite
Do
surprising.
you know what? I remember him saying that that was one of his best achievements in his managerial career, and everyone going,
Yeah,
he's
everyone laughed.
mental, wasn't he? And when you look back now, you go, oh, actually,
Yeah.
that team he had, that was some achievement.
What about the GOAT, greatest player of all time? Who is that player for you, and hard to compare across different eras of different players?
It is because I think the game changes and evolves so much. It's almost impossible to have a conversation where you're talking about somebody who's played in today's game and then transport them back to like the 1970s where football was a very different game. It was brutal in the 90s. I mean, so you see some of the old ITV. I don't know if you watch any of the old ITV match stuff. Some of the tackles that are going in those games, and you're going, what? And it's not even getting a yellow. I mean, these are red card tackles, and they ain't even getting a yellow. In fact, they're not even getting spoken to. Referee's just gone, free kick, carry on. And it's just like, how would Lionel Messi have coped in that era? I mean, George Best managed to do it.
The pitches as well. I mean,
pitches was another point I was going to come to.
George Best on the pitches today.
Absolutely
unbelievable. He was unbelievable.
I mean, how would you have got the ball off of him on a decent pitch compared? You couldn't get it off of him on a mud pad. It was just incredible. So I find it really difficult to try and compare and contrast. You can only kind of go with
the best in the era.
Yeah, the era that you're in. You compare to other players in that era, and if you feel like that's the best in that era, that's fine. So I think you can define it as the best in your era. Mm-hmm. The best of all time is a conversation that we could sit here and debate for
it's difficult,
ever and ever, and it will go on forever and ever.
So in this era, are you Messi or Ronaldo? Can you pick between them?
Yeah, I mean, I've always been a bigger. I look at it and think, who would I pay the most money to go and watch? And that would be Messi for me.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, that is not detracted in any way, shape, or form from Cristiano Ronaldo, because what he has done in his career has just been absolutely phenomenal. The volume of goals, the way the professionalism he's had, the way he's carried himself, the way he's looked after his body, is just taken football to another level, really. The professionalism that he showed. So both of them are world class. I would pay more money to go and watch Messi. Simple as that.
Fair. Yeah.
And he costs a bit more now in MLS. They put the ticket prices up everywhere. So
they
it will cost you a few more quid to go watch him.
Yeah.
There's been times in your career where you could have had potential moves away. Spurs come knocking once, Chelsea, and also Liverpool. What would it have actually taken you to get out of Southampton? Would it have been like a big European club, like a Barcelona, Real Madrid, something like that to tempt you out? A monetary figure? Is it?
I don't think it's really about the club, to be honest. I've been asked this question about if I was now at Southampton, and would I make the same decisions again?
Yeah.
And when I think about it now, if I was at Southampton now, maybe earning, I don't know, 60, 70 grand a week, which is not unheard of at Southampton when they were in the Premier League.
Yeah.
Now, if I'm earning that kind of money, and then Man City come in and go, well, we'll give you 250 grand a week. Now, I was thinking about that now, going, I'm not sure even I could turn that down. And I was happy at Southampton. I loved it there, and I don't regret any decisions I made in my career, not at all. And the monetary thing back in those days wasn't as big. So, for instance, when Spurs tried to buy me in 1990, I remember I'd spoken to them and we'd agreed terms on a contract, and that contract was a 3-year deal. I think the first year of the deal was 1,100 quid a week. Now I obviously turned down Spurs, and I ended up signing a new contract at Southampton, which wasn't far off of, if not pretty much the same as what Spurs were offering me. So the differential back then, the money thing wasn't really an issue. In 95, when Chelsea tried to buy me, it was a little bit different. So I was probably on maybe just over 2 grand a week at that point. And if I'd have gone to Chelsea, I mean, they would probably been talking about, I don't know, 10 or 15 grand a week. So, although it's massive, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying it's not huge money, but in comparison to today,
the ratios are bigger. Much bigger these days.
It's just like,
it's multi-generational wealth as opposed to
that's the point.
Lifetime wealth.
I mean, you're not just making sure your kids are all right. That's your grandkids sorted out, your grandkids.
Yeah.
And that would have to be taken into consideration. And I think it would be very difficult in this day and age for now, if I was at Southampton now and somebody came in with me and offering those kind of figures, I don't think I'd be able to turn it down.
Yeah. Okay.
What about if when you're playing, you might have been asked this before, but if Southampton got relegated when you were playing and those clubs came in for you?
So I always felt like I would have wanted to have given it a season to try and get us back up. Because I always felt like, certainly kind of once I got into my 20s, I always felt like there was a responsibility on me in that team to score the goals, to create the goals. Yeah. That was my job in the team. And if we'd have got relegated, I think I would have felt responsible. I would have felt like I haven't done my job properly. So if that's the case, I feel like I should stay a season and try and get us back up again. And if it worked out that we didn't go back up that season, then I think I would have gone, don't really want to play down here for too long.
Yeah.
I feel like I should be playing in that league. I've scored goals in that league. I know I can play in that league, so I should be playing in that league. So I think I would have given it one season.
So that's it for today's episode, guys. Catch us next time, where we'll be discussing the current game with Matt Le Tissier. If you enjoyed the video today, please consider dropping a like on the video. And if you'd like to subscribe to the channel, you'll be notified for new episodes when they drop. But that's it for this time, guys. Have a world-class weekend, and we'll catch you all next time.